Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because many people around the world are watching this event in different time zone. So from RML, I want to welcome all of you to this event. This is an event to mark the 9th Rohingya Genocide Remembrance Day 2026. RML Refugee Migration Lab is a kind of research collectives and networks of scholars working around the world on particularly refugee migration, stateless, asylum seekers, forcibly displaced people, and quote unquote transborder mobility, borderless peoples, a lot of issues, but it's a kind of research networks. We frequently organize different kind of events to bring scholars to reflect with their research and experience. So today we have wonderful, brilliant 4 panelists to mark this event. We have Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, who is the founder director of the Center for Genocide Studies at the University of Dhaka, and former professor of the International Relations at the University of Dhaka, and currently is serving as a Dean of Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, Kathmandu, Nepal. Welcome, Professor Imtiaz. We have Professor Anderson, with Dr. Anderson, we call as a renowned genocide scholar, and he's renowned for his couple of very good, renowned and very popular book, particularly I would say a couple of books like, for example, The Perpetrating Genocide Criminological Account, which was published in 2019 from Routledge, and also Researching Perpetrators of Genocide. This is a very, very popular book, which was published in 2020 from the University of Wisconsin Press. Dr. Anderson, welcome. And we have Dr. Farhana Afrin Rahman, an affiliated lecturer, Department of Political Science and International Affairs from the University of Cambridge, UK. And she's also renowned for Rohingya research, particularly her monograph came out from the Cambridge University Press 2024, After the Exodus of Gender and Belongings in Bangladesh Rohingya refugee camps. And we have Yasminullah, a Rohingya feminist, author, poet, and human rights activist based in Canada. And also she is the founder and executive director of the Rohingya Mayaphone or Collective Networks. So it's a wonderful panelist we have to discuss the event today. And this event is supported by University College London as part of its project activities, Denial of Politics and Non-Recognition of Genocide, funded by the British Academy. We have the principal investigator, Dr. Bayez Ahmed, an associate professor from the University College London. So without further delay, we'll start. I would invite Dr. Bayez Ahmed from UCL to just say a few words as introductory remarks. Professor Bayez Ahmed.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Nasir, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I'm really pleased to co-organize this event with Refugee Migration Lab that is based in Bangladesh, and that organization was created by Professor Nasiruddin. It's a great initiative, and he's trying to bring together scholars, activists, and also victims from all around the world related to this topic. And we are really pleased to co-organize this event. So I work at UCL, an associate professor. I'm Bayez Ahmed, and I'm also from Bangladesh, but it's been 14 years I'm working here. And since 2017, we are exclusively working with partners in Bangladesh and Rohingya communities, and also with Professor Imtiaz Ahmed and other colleagues here, addressing the Rohingya crisis that's mostly near about 1.6 million Rohingyas are currently living in Bangladesh. And of course, out of them, 300,000 are already integrated within the host communities. And our ultimate goal is to bring justice for the Rohingya communities who face genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. So altogether, and also to ensure their safe, dignified, and durable repatriation back to their homeland in Myanmar. So that's our ultimate two goals, to bring justice and through justice to make sure they return to their homeland. And these are the two ultimate goals. We are doing research, publishing journal articles. Just yesterday, we published our milestone book on the politics of denial and non-recognition of genocide, the case of the Rohingya. It's Palgrave Macmillan. It's an open access book. Later we'll share the link here so you can download. Scholars, activists, and practitioners from all around the world, they contributed to the book. But yes, we do academic work, but as well as we closely work with diplomats, other country, and UN and many other organizations, including activists in this country and in other places, ultimately to ensure they get the justice from ICJ, International Court of Justice, the genocide recognition, as well as they return to their homeland from different countries, particularly from Bangladesh, so that that is also important for the national security of Bangladesh as well. So there are so many complex things that are happening within two different countries. So hopefully other speakers will talk about it. So I want to stop here, and I really want to thank everyone and look forward to listening from our guests and speakers. Thank you so much. So you have to unmute.
You're muted. Nasser, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Bias, for supporting this event and for your very brief introductory remark. So we'll now go for our formal professional panel discussions. Before just I go to Professor Imtiaz, I just want to say a few words, particularly when we talk about 9th Rohingya Genocide Remembrance Day. It does not essentially mean the genocide started in 2017. Even before 2017, many of you might know that Yale University Law School and also Queen Mary University State Crime Project, they published kind of public policy paper, and they also there's a lot of evidences that genocide actually was continuing even far before 2017. And even after 2017, it does not essentially mean the genocide stopped in 2017. Still is going on. So our four distinguished panelists will listen to them. First, I will invite Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, who has been working on Rohingya affairs for decades, and who is the founder, director of the Center for Gender Studies at the University of Dhaka, and who has wonderful take. I will invite Professor Imtiaz Ahmed to reflect on this topic today. Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Nasser. Thank you to all of you, my co-panelists. Good to see Yasmin on the platform, and good number of people I know. Thank you, all of you, and good earth to all of you, given the time zone. Good earth to all of you. I think Nasser has rightly pointed out, because when I was invited to speak and I saw 9th genocide, it shocked me a pretty, because genocide in the case of the Rohingya started long before 9th, not long before 2017. I remember in one of the roundtables that we had, somebody went back as early as 19th century, where the intent to destroy was clear. So one can go even beyond 1948 when it comes to the Rohingya population, particularly in Myanmar. A couple of things I will flag so that we can have good discussions. One is we are waiting, we have to wait a couple of more years, I think, for the ICJ to come up with its final judgment. My take on that is that the judgment will be, making clear that it was a genocide. There's no reason this time. There's enough evidence. Even with the interpretation, one can, bring that, because Myanmar state and those who the denials, they have raised this issue whether it was intent to destroy or intent to displace, you know. But I believe, looking at the two judgments that we had already, I think there will be the final judgment will say that it is a clear case of judgment of genocide. Even if that gets complicated, the crime against humanity is it's absolutely, there's no reason the crime against humanity will not be there as one of the key things. Uh, the question will be then, what's then? What do you do with that? Because to uh, you know make it practical, or whatever the judgment is, to enforce that, you will need the Security Council that is there. So we have to, I know it will be a uh, symbolic value. It will really make, particularly the Rohingyas, deserve what they have wishing for years. I remember even the first judgment, when the trial started, I was in The Hague, in the same room with Aung San Suu Kyi. I remember even telling them that the judgment will be in favor of the Rohingyas. But the question is, what then? We should start preparing for it, because I think, because it will need Security Council in order to enforce it. There will be vetoes, so we need to work on that too. Very quickly, because whenever we talk about Rohingyas, particularly in the context of Bangladesh, there's the issue of repatriation. This has been there. It's one of the big thing this past week. I see number of seminars and conferences and a lot of write-ups on the issue of uh, repatriation. Uh, this is also, I think, we need to work on, because Rohingyas want to go to their homeland. It's also an issue of identity. How do you keep your identity? There is a narrative that is coming up increasingly that let them stay in Bangladesh, because we don't know when they will go. But the question is, what will happen to the Rohingya identity? Who will reproduce that? Uh, Even if it is in Bangladesh, will they remain? Will they stay as Rohingya? Will that ethnic identity be given to them? Because it is an issue of identity, which is connected to this genocide. So, what will happen to that? There are narratives which will say that, third country settlement. That also we have to be very careful, because what will happen to the identity? Even if they're taken to some third country, well, the numbers are negligible, but still the question that should be asked is, what would happen to the identity? And in both cases, this will also help what the Myanmar military wanted in the first place. If they stay in Bangladesh, if that's the narrative, I think the Myanmar military will be very happy. If it is a third country settlement, that also Myanmar military will be happy. So what do we do then? Because I see, and talking to the Rohingyas, I go to the camps almost every year, and I we did a lot of roundtables with the Rohingya stakeholders, including the new leadership that has come up. They all want to go back, 100%. So what do you do with that? Now, very quickly, there are 5 pathways that is already, there when it comes to repatriation. There's one is a bilateral pathway between Bangladesh and Myanmar. It started way back in 2017, an MOA has been signed, not even an MOU, and I was very critical even then. It's a memorandum of arrangement, which has no legal, uh, there's no legal backing on MOA. There's nothing of that kind. So it's not even MOU. Uh, but still, that bilateral pathway is still there. The second one is multilateral pathway. UNDP got into and signed agreements with both Myanmar and Bangladesh, but that also, and for a dignified, return of the Rohingyas, but that also has not delivered. The third pathway is the tripartite pathway. China got in, that again as early as 2017, where China, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, they had a plan. They also wanted to launch a pilot project. That pathway is still there. It got a little bit re-energized because of our Prime Minister going to Beijing and President Xi Jinping giving this proposal of economic corridor between China, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, uh, where uh, where the Chinese ambassador, when he was asked about this economic corridor and what about Rohingya issue, he made it clear that the Rohingya issue can be resolved through this economic corridor. So we have to wait and see how that would come about. So the tripartite pathway is still there, but up until now it has not delivered. The fourth one is accountability. Here, I think there has been quite a progress. One, of course, is the two judgment that came in ICJ, where for the first time the Rohingyas got recognition from a world body. I think that's quite a big step. Then you also have the Argentinian case that also, I think, has a judgment, and you also have the U.S. During Joe Biden's time coming up and saying it's a genocide. So accountability has made some progress, but as I pointed out in the beginning, even at the best, judgment with the ICJ, when it comes to enforcement, it has to go through Security Council. So we have to prepare ourselves not to be overwhelmed, even if we have a favorable judgment. And the final one is reimposing sanction, but that also did not, uh, after Donald Trump, it became flexible, and some of the countries never joined. Australia never joined, Japan never joined, China, of course, never joined, India never joined. So that also has not really worked. Now, all these are in diplomacy, they will say for Myanmar, these are all sticks. So it has not really worked. So when it comes to repatriation, one way or other, we cannot do without Myanmar military or without Arakan army. That's my perspective as an IR student. Somehow there has to be some negotiation at one time, because at the end of the day, you can't get rid of Myanmar military. And now with the Arakan army almost holding 70% of the land, you need to negotiate. And that is where I think we need to be creative. What do we do? We started something called Arakan Stabilization Plan, thinking in terms of a kind of a mini Marshall Plan. And the idea was, if the French and the Germans, if they can get together, can there be a possibility of thinking out of the box? And Marshall Plan was quite a creative, step, though the time is very different. I'm aware that. And that did not stop the Nuremberg trial. The Nuremberg trial went on in parallel with the Marshall Plan. So, I'm just flagging that just to give a sense that whether we can think out of the box, because all the five pathways got stuck, and that does not mean that we can just sit down and do nothing. Uh, my last point would be, there is this project on capacity building of the Rohingyas, and I'm talking about in Bangladesh. The Bangladesh government is a little skeptic about this capacity building, because Bangladesh government thinks that this is one way of settling the Rohingyas within Bangladesh forever. So Bangladesh government, somehow discourages this. But I think, what needs to be done is to link the capacity building with the Arakan stabilization plan, so that the Rohingyas would know who's getting capacity as to what they will do at the end. Because my discussion with the Rohingyas in the camps also, they said, Prof, what do we do with the capacity once we get the capacity? So we can start thinking about how can we link the capacity building, and maybe through the discussion I can explain that further. But as I said, we need uh, different ways and different pathways, different, and I'm not trying to say that these are the only pathways that can resolve the issue, because it's already end of ninth year. We're moving to 10th year, and one can see that things have not moved in the way that one, particularly Rohingyas wanting to go back to their homeland, uh, which would, I think, would be the best, the justice. If there's a word called justice, that would be the final thing that should happen. So I will stop there, and maybe during the Q&A, I can come back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Imtiaz Ahmed. Wonderful, your experience. You shared your experience, and you have brought up a lot of questions, particularly the question of identity, and also the roles of ICJ, and also the potential different pathways of repatriation. So, actually, there's a lot of discussions in the public sphere about the social safety, voluntary repatriation, who will ensure their life safety, and who will ensure the legal recognitions, all this. So we'll come back to you again. First round, we'll invite all our panelists to reflect with your research, and those who are in the Zoom platform, I request, if you have any questions, please put your questions in the chat box so that we can continue our discussion. Now I will invite Dr. Anderson from the University of Manitoba. Please join us and share your experience and reflect on today's topic. Dr. Anderson from University of Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Professor Udin, and thank you as well for inviting me to the panel, and also to the Refugee and Migration Lab and my distinguished co-panelists. And I would like to especially also welcome and speak to any Rohingya people who might have the chance to listen now or to listen later, and to speak directly to you, because I know that obviously it goes without saying, but it's still important to say that the Rohingya are in a very tight spot. And sometimes it feels like Rohingya people are completely forgotten, but I know that there are many people who care about the Rohingya, and I think more people would care if they knew more about the situation, which is part of our job here today and going forward, I think, as well. So obviously the Rohingya, I'll speak a bit about, well, I'll speak on three themes really. I'll speak about the genocide, why it's genocide briefly, how it compares to other genocides, and also what can be done in terms of recognition, or the importance of recognition. And obviously the Rohingya were driven violently from their homeland into exile. Many people had their friends and family members killed. Many people's towns and villages were killed. The situation in the camps right now, the refugee camps, the largest refugee camps in the world, is quite desperate. I mean, these are places of extreme vulnerability where people don't have enough to eat. In many cases, they face a lot of violence, a lot of risk of violence and crime, a lot of natural disasters, and maybe more fundamentally, and I've been visiting the camps a lot over the last couple of years. I mean, there's just this permanent state of limbo where people are just really stuck. They're not able to return to their homeland, to Myanmar and to Rakhine state. They're living somewhat stunted lives in Bangladesh. I mean, they're doing their best to make their best of a very bad situation effectively, but they can't really flourish. There's no real possibility of human development in the full sense. So moving now to talk more about the genocide itself. I mean, when I first began interviewing Rohingya genocide survivors about a year ago, about a year and a half ago. What really struck me and what surprised me was kind of the relentless, everyday, grinding persecution that Rohingya have faced for many years. And this is why Professor Udin was also right to point out, and Professor Ahmed, that this is not something that just happened in 2017. This has been going on for a very long time. And a lot of it kind of seems like bullying, which bullying might seem a way to underplay the severity of what's happening. And that is definitely not my intention, because we're talking about systematic, violent persecution that is informed obviously by systems of belief which marginalize the Rohingya, as Professor Udin puts it, into a situation where they're kind of rendered as subhuman life, or as people who aren't fully human and don't enjoy the kind of full range of not just rights, but human dignity that everyone else enjoys. This violence, of course, has also been gendered. Women have been subject to sexual violence and humiliation. More broadly, men have been forcibly conscripted into labor in many cases, especially under the Arakan army. More recently, you have a lot of forced conscription into the armed forces, or into armed groups, you can say. There's been a targeting of religious buildings and religious leaders. Of course, since at least 2012, there have been very kind of draconian curfews and restrictions on movement of Rohingya. So when we look back on 2017 and 9 years since 2017, we have to situate this within a much longer dynamic, which stretches back decades, really, with periods of more severe outbursts of violence, often at times of heightened Rohingya resistance. And this resistance is used also to frame violence as more akin to kind of sectarian conflict between between Arakan people and Rohingya people, rather than systematic state violence, much less genocide. But this framing, of course, is inaccurate. It prevents violence, which is fundamentally asymmetric. It's unequal. We don't see equal violence going both directions, not even close. But this asymmetric violence, ethnic cleansing, and genocide becomes something which is more symmetrical, which is something more like armed conflict, or maybe even counterterrorism, to kind of take the more extreme end of those narratives. So when we look back on 2017, what do we see in terms of what actually happened? Of course, I'm going to be very brief, so I'll just summarize a bit here. But we have variation among different townships, of course, in terms of what happened, different regions of the country, or of the state, I should say. But a typical pattern involved the bombardment of Rohingya villages, often with artillery, sometimes with helicopter gunships. Many houses were set on fire. People who were unable to leave then were effectively burned alive. And I apologize for my bluntness, but this is what happened. You also had at that point many Myanmar military, as well as civilian auxiliaries who were often Rakhine, would come in and loot Rohingya dwellings, and in many cases would also kill survivors. Rohingya people in these villages had very little time to leave. They had to flee very rapidly, of course, under very difficult circumstances, making tremendously difficult journeys over land, over sea, across the Naf River, often with not enough to eat, of course, being pursued in many cases by the Myanmar military, traveling through areas where massacres had already occurred. And we see elements of this pattern, of course, continuing into the present day under the Arakan army, with the Rohingya who are still in Rakhine living in highly repressive conditions that are almost akin, maybe not almost actually, they are akin really to concentration camps in many ways. So when we get to kind of what are the central legal debates in terms of how this is defined, of course, the central legal debate is whether it's genocide or whether it's just international crimes, other international crimes, which could, of course, be already tremendously severe, such as the crime against humanity of persecution. Of course, the correct answer, in my view, is that it's all these things. It is all these things. So we have genocide, we have war crimes, we have other forms of violence. And when we consider why it's genocide, it's both about the scale of violence, but more importantly, it's about the character of violence, which really targets Rohingya as such. And it also targets Rohingya markers of identity, which we see in other cases, like in the Bosnian genocide, for example, like the burning of beards of imams that we see sometimes, or we've seen sometimes in Rakhine. For example, this is a very kind of symbolic and very deliberate act, which is aimed at Rohingya identity effectively, especially as Muslims. And this is obviously part of a much broader pattern of Islamophobic persecution, which also ties to these bigger narratives of Islamophobia. So the intention was to destroy Rohingya as a group through killing, but also through the destruction of culture, through their forced expulsion. And I would also point out that the Genocide Convention, I think, is a lot broader than most lay people think, or many lay people think. Of course, it's not only about mass extermination. It's about a range of acts which are aimed at the destruction of the group. And it's not just total destruction, it's also killing in part or destruction in part. And we see a lot of these debates echoed, for example, in the Gaza situation, where there's kind of a misapprehension that genocide means everybody is killed, which is, of course, not the case and has never been the case either legally or historically. So there's always this question of intent and moving towards wrapping things up. And of course, we usually gather intent from the pattern of attacks and sometimes by statements from leaders and by speakers. And we see both of these things evincing genocide in this case. A lot of statements essentializing Rohingya as being fundamentally bad, being a fundamental security threat to Myanmar and to Myanmar's character as a Buddhist country. But it's crucial to remember that genocide is always multidimensional, so it always includes many different forms of violence and criminality. So wrapping things up, talking about kind of recognition, obviously the only way that the Rohingya will be able to return to Myanmar is through a political solution. And many of the Rohingya people I've spoken to place tremendous faith in international courts, and maybe even misplaced faith in a sense, because I've definitely encountered the belief that if the ICC finds that there was forced displacement, or the ICJ finds that there was genocide, that this means the Rohingya will be immediately able to return home, which of course is not the case. Trials can serve as vectors of denial. The state is a respondent, of course, at the ICJ. In that case, the enforcement of international justice is fundamentally rooted in political processes. But this doesn't mean that countering denial isn't very important through political processes, activism, scholarship. It's crucially important, I think, to challenge discourses that are really false discourses around the supposed complexity of the violence, or rendering it as just ethnic conflict or as a humanitarian tragedy. And the problem with these narratives is that they depoliticize the conflict and they change the realities on the ground, or they misrepresent the realities on the ground. They don't challenge the actual power structures which have led to the continuing persecution and marginalization of Rohingya. So I'll just wrap up just with a statement, I guess, of solidarity with Rohingya people as well. And a lot of this can seem very hopeless, and I'm not the person to give you hope. But at the same time, I think where you really see hope is with, I think, the energy among young Rohingya activists. And there are many, many Rohingya who are involved in challenging genocide and trying to improve their community. And I think this energy, working with allies, working with people outside, I hope will finally bring about some of these changes. But it's justice is definitely a bit of a long prospect, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. It's wonderful to listen to you, particularly when you started talking about, different kind of legal, understanding of crimes against humanity, whether it's just war crime or ethnic cleansing, genocide, and also, different ways of. And I want to make sure that there are a lot of Rohingya people now they have joined us in this Zoom platform and watching. Almost more than 10, participants here are from in the Zoom platform are from Rohingya community. So they are listening to you, and always we try to listen to their story from their perspective. And it's also, sometimes meaningful to understand our understanding too. So thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. Now I will welcome Dr. Farhana Afrin Rahman from University of Cambridge. Please.
Thank you, Professor Nasiruddin, and it's an honor to be here, especially, as you said, there's a lot of Rohingya participants here. A lot of my own friends, I've sent them the link, so it's really nice to see them also participating. And really great to be amongst so many great co-panelists, Yasmin, who I've followed for a very long time, and of course, Professor Imtiaz and Dr. Anderson. So thank you to the RML as well for bringing us together. And I think this important discussion on this very important day to remember the victims of the Rohingya genocide and to honor its survivors, but also to really think about what justice, if we can, envision that, and a future for the Rohingya people must look like. And so Professor Anderson and Professor Ahmed have already spoken to some of the historical, political, and legal dimensions of the violence of 2017. So I'll touch a bit upon that as well for my talk, but I also kind of want to shift the scale as well to think somewhat from the court, away from the courtroom and towards an idea of the particularity of denial and what denial does to the lives of people. And so my own work with Rohingya refugees has been longstanding for over a decade now, and it's primarily been ethnographic with Rohingya refugees in the refugee camp in Bangladesh, and it's focused particularly on gender, displacement, and belonging. And like many of my co-panelists, I go back every year to the Rohingya camp, so I've really seen a shift from how things were, over a decade ago, even before the exodus happened in 2017, and then obviously 2017 and after. And so what I want to suggest today is that denial is not simply something that happens after genocide. And particularly in the Rohingya case, denial has been central to the political process that made the violence possible in the first place and continues very much to shape Rohingya lives today. And so I want to think about this through three interrelated forms of denial. So the denial of violence, the denial of identity, which Professor Ahmed talked about as well, and ultimately the denial of a future. And so when we think of the denial of violence, in 2017, as we all know, there was mass killing, the destruction of villages on an enormous scale, forced displacement. But genocide was not simply this description of a very exceptionally large-scale violence. As Dr. Anderson mentioned, there were acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, this protected group. And the UN Independent International Fact-Finding Mission, as we know, documented the systematic use of sexual and gender-based violence against the Rohingya. Women and girls were raped and gang raped. Pregnant women were attacked. So these patterns of violence were among the factors supporting the mission's inference of what is genocidal intent. So gender very much was not peripheral to understanding of the Rohingya genocide. It helps us understand how this destruction of a group can be enacted through bodies, through reproduction and families, and the possibility of a communal continuity or the lack of communal continuity. And in other words, sexual violence should not be treated simply as an atrocity that accompanied the genocide, but it was very much part of how we understand the destruction of social and reproductive life itself. And so as Professor Anderson and Ahmed said before, 2017 obviously didn't just happen out of nowhere. It was the systematic thing that happened over the last several decades. And obviously then progressed to deprivation of citizenship, lack of freedom of movement, lack of access to education, etc. And so that brings me next to the second form of denial, which is the denial of identity. And as we've already discussed, for decades, an extraordinary amount of political work has gone into this claim of ensuring by the Burmese that the Rohingya are not Rohingya at all. And they're in fact Bengalis or migrants from Bangladesh, outsiders who entered Myanmar illegally, or people who therefore do not properly belong to this nation state of Myanmar. And naming is profoundly political. And if you successfully construct a population as foreign, illegal, or fundamentally out of this place, then their exclusion begins to appear legitimate. And then it takes the form of saying these people simply do not exist because they are not Burmese, they are not from Myanmar. And even we saw earlier this year during Myanmar's arguments before the ICJ, the Rohingya were again described as Bengalis. And that sort of naming matters, again, because we're confronting, this persistence of the very political narrative through which Rohingya belonging in Myanmar has historically been denied. And so this problem cannot now be understood solely in relation to the Myanmar military as political control in Rakhine State has shifted. Rohingya has continued to face forms of exclusion under the Arakan army, including restrictions on movement and livelihoods, and the continued denial of Rohingya identity. And so this takes me to the main form of denial, which is a denial of a future. So the Rohingya refugees and the ones that I've particularly worked with in Bangladesh post 2017 are currently living under this sort of framework of simply survival. But survival is not necessarily the same thing as having a future. And so they remain stateless, their citizenship remains unsolved, safe and dignified return remains impossible under these present conditions. Children who crossed the border in 2017 are becoming adults in these refugee camps. Children have been born and have died in these camps, and many of them have never seen Myanmar at all or remember a sort of political or national identity towards Myanmar. And so this prolonged condition of waiting has these very profound consequences. And with my own work with Rohingya women in particular, I think of one of these conversations I had with one of my Rohingya interlocutors, and I spent time with her in the refugee camp, who once spoke to me at length about her home in Rakhine State. So she described the house, where the cooking fire had been, the neighbors she had grown up alongside, the pond she used to walk with other women and girls. And then almost sort of in passing, she told me that none of it existed anymore. But she dwelled so long on that moment in Myanmar. And so what stayed with me, I think, was her reflection that there was not simply a loss of a house, but it was the loss of this entire social world, the relationships, routines, memories, and everyday forms of care through which belonging had become meaningful. And so in displacement, she was trying to rebuild parts of this world in a place where almost everything remained temporary. And so when we talk about genocide, and as we've been talking about today, I think we also have to think about the destruction of the conditions through which people are able to or not able to sustain a community or reproduce a social world or imagine a sort of future beyond this. And this is particularly important when we think about gender, because one of the things that I've repeatedly been struck in my own work is the way Rohingya women become these extraordinarily visible subjects to the international community as victims, while remaining very much less visible as political subjects. And so in my conversations with these women, they would of course speak about the immediate realities of camp life, lack of food, shelter, healthcare, safety, but very often the conversation would move somewhere else entirely. Women would speak about the land they left behind, about whether their children would ever have citizenship, about whether they would ever be able to go home and what kind of lives their daughters would have. And so these are not simply questions of vulnerability or protection. These are very much political claims about citizenship, land, family, community, dignity, recognition, and belonging. And as many of us who work with the refugees in our own work, if we actually listen to them as political claims and these ideas about home and belonging as political claims, rather than simply translating them back into this language of vulnerability and protection, then they can point us towards something very concrete and towards concrete questions about what a future for the Rohingya must involve. And so, as my co-panelists mentioned before, return must remain a right, but it simply cannot mean that people move back across a border without appropriate citizenship or recognition of Rohingya identity, freedom of movement, and that sort of thing. And for Rohingya women in particular, I think we have to be very concrete about what we mean when we speak of a future for them. It simply cannot mean keeping women safe while decisions about citizenship, return, etc., are made elsewhere, largely by men. It means a woman being able to hold documentation in her own name. It means allowing them to have a seat at the table, to have a voice in these conversations instead of just being brought in afterwards to discuss women's issues. And so for Rohingya women in particular, the question is about what kind of life will they be able to return to? And that is why recognition of genocide matters so profoundly, because recognition says to survivors, what happened to you was not simply an unfortunate consequence of conflict, but your displacement was not inevitable, and the violence committed against you cannot be erased by rewriting the history of who you are, but recognition can't be the end point of justice. As Dr. Anderson mentioned before, justice means accountability, but it also must create the conditions in which Rohingya can live as rights-bearing political subjects. And crucially for Rohingya women, it must bring meaningful political voice in determining what their future will look like. And of course, you know, this brings us to the ICJ and the merits we heard that took place in January earlier this year. And the court is obviously deliberating right now. But you know, judgment, whatever eventual judgment will take place, it will be enormously significant, but it cannot by itself restore belonging. And so when we ask today about the future of the Rohingya people, I think we have to resist measuring success simply by whether the Rohingya will survive, which they're doing right now. They're surviving every day in the Rohingya camps. But the deeper question is whether they can continue to exist as Rohingya, because ultimately the opposite of genocide is not simply survival. It's the possibility of continuing to exist as a people. And that is why, you know, in the Rohingya case specifically, recognition, justice, dignity, and belonging cannot ultimately be separated from one another. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful, and thank you so much for bringing this the gender aspects of this genocidal, you know, event what we are talking about. And also it's very interesting to locate when we talk about repatriation, what about the women experience and what kind of, you know, what so far they have lost during these days, particularly when we talk about the destruction is a kind of domicide, and also did it go through. And also what is important, I think is interesting to understand this survival, just living alive, or just, you know, survival is a human life. And there are a lot of, you know, issues involved when we talk about the camp's life. Okay, so we'll come to you again around the clock. Now, before we go to Yasmin, our last panelist, I would just request the Professor Ahmed, Dr. Anderson, and Dr. Rahman, please check the chat box. We have received a lot of questions, and there are particular questions, the particular panelists. So if possible, you can respond to them, because when we'll go for Q&A session, already I have received a lot of questions from outside, from social media platforms. So I will choose and pick a couple of very relevant questions which are actually important, and, you know, just to contribute to this discussions. Now I will welcome Yasminullah is a renowned human rights activist and renowned voices of, you know, one of the very, you know, leading voice of Rohingya women. I would say Rohingya people before the global audience, and also the founder and executive director of Rohingya Mayafuan or Collaborative Networks. Yasminullah, now is your turn, please.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Professor Nasruddin, and thank you for the Refugee Migration Lab for the invitation today, and for others who have supported this very, very important commemoration event. Thank you for having me today, and I want to spend just a little bit of time, I think, because a lot of us have already kind of discussed pathways towards the future. Perhaps there is a bit of investment we can do here when it comes to introducing my organization. And this is not any kind of self-promotion, but it is something that actually aligns with what other stellar panelists have already mentioned. The Rohingya Mayafuan Collaborative Network is a feminist collective, one of its kind, working on building better narratives and social cohesion in various parts of the region, especially Southeast Asia. And we work on accountability, access to opportunities for Rohingya community in exile. As the only non-academic person here and a practitioner, please indulge me for a moment to explain what our collective actually does. We are a team of 15 Rohingya young women. 15 of us are separated by borders. We are all over the world. Some of us are in the global north, more privileged, able to travel freely, and some from the global south. We're united in our dreams of reviving our indigeneity and our eventual return to homeland. We work hard to create an understanding that helps Rohingya genocide be recognized as a collective responsibility through humanizing us, inviting people to learn about our history, and this is in part thanks to something called the exhibit, online exhibit, Ekale, or Once Upon a Time by Greg Constantine. So thanks to him. And inviting people through, you know, to come to our cultural nights that we host, feed people food from the Rohingya culture, producing films and other forms of storytelling, as well as hosting dialogues with people across the region, especially those from Burma, Myanmar. All of this also helps us raise funds to fill in an ever-widening gaps of humanitarian response across South and Southeast Asia. So we do have humanitarian programs. We also do advocacy. Now, 9 years ago, on August 25th, 2017, I was bogged down by this feeling of helplessness. The Myanmar military launched what it called clearance operations against the Rohingya, and many part of my families have actually fled from their own villages. On foot, no shoes, no hijab, nothing of importance except their own lives. For us, it was no longer a clearance operation, it was a genocide. More than 730,000 Rohingya were forced across the border into Bangladesh. Villages were destroyed, people were killed, women and girls were subjected to widespread sexual and gender-based violence, families were separated, an entire population was driven out of its homeland. And this is not news to any one of you. A UN investigation found evidence of genocidal acts. But I want to begin somewhere a little bit more personal. On August 14th, I stood with my colleagues at the network at the Bangladesh-Myanmar border, near the Naf River, at the 0 point. And for the first time in my adult life, I saw Arakan. And for most of my life, Arakan had been almost this abstract homeland, something I knew through my family story, fractured memories, names of villages, food, culture, and stories of people who had been forced to leave. Then suddenly, across the river, there were these beautiful mountains, mountain range. Arakan was breathtakingly beautiful. So we cried. Some of my colleagues had never set foot in their lifetime in Arakan. Some were born outside of their homeland, yet seeing those mountains produce something so visceral to us, we don't even know how to describe it. Because we knew what lay behind that beautiful landscape. In 2017, people in Teknaf were close enough to the violence to smell the smoke and burning flesh from across the border. More than 730,000 Rohingya would eventually cross that frontier. Standing there 9 years later, the geography of genocide became real to us. And I kept thinking about one thing. There is a Rohingya child born today who may have grown up without ever knowing the scent of Arakan, the soil of Arakan, and the embrace of the homeland their grandparents remembered and built. That is what 9 years meant. The genocide is a specific crime, so specific under international law. But even when it happens, so few jumps to the action. So we have to look at both what happened and also the evidence of intent. We saw mass killings, the destructions of villages, mass displacement, the widespread sexual violence, and these crimes came alongside decades of policies denying Rohingya citizenship, restriction of movement, limiting political participation, and undermining our ability to live as an equal community in our homeland. The United States in 2022 determination followed a factual and legal analysis and concluded that members of the Myanmar military committed genocide and crimes against humanity against us. The UN fact-finding mission also likewise concluded that there were reasonable grounds to conclude that genocidal acts have been committed, called for investigation of senior military officials for genocide. So this was not simply a military operation that became excessively violent. The target was a people. And the question of genocidal intent is precisely one of the questions now before the International Court of Justice. There is a very, very important contemporary debate about whether we should call something genocide before a court has issued a final judgment. This also pops up when we actually work in the region through various internet corners where people question the reality of the victimhood of the Rohingya, whether or not we're Muslims, perhaps we're Zionist, perhaps we're just playing games to ensure that we're actually getting a free handout. I believe what we need to do is distinguish legal adjudication from political recognition. And I believe that every panelist have already mentioned that. A court determines legal responsibility according to the law and evidence before it. Governments can make their own determinations, and perhaps they all should. Survivors already document what happened. Researchers already started to help preserve evidence. Civil society must then preserve memory and pushes institutions to act. These processes should reinforce one another. And a very curious case of this happening is actually both the determination in Canada and in the US. Both the institutions like the Canadian Museum for Human Rights and the US Holocaust Memorial Museum were actually quite part and parcel to the determination becoming a reality. I know that the importance of the recognition is not only an abstract principle, but it is also a recognition to the victim community. I've worked as a Rohingya advocate, human rights, in many human rights organizations with other policymakers in both Canada and the US to push government to recognize what happened as genocide. Now, those determinations were never about winning an argument over one word. They were about what the word allows us to do. Because once the government formally recognizes a genocide, it becomes much harder to say we didn't know. This was simply an ethnic conflict or sectarian violence, or this was simply a security operation, like one of the panelists I've already mentioned in regards to the terrorism. Recognition really creates political and evidentiary foundations for accountability, and that is where we take part in. The recognition cannot just become a memorial plaque that governments point to while they continue business as usual, as we are seeing in the region, in Southeast Asia specifically. Recognition must also lead somewhere. Recognition must lead to sanctions of military oil and gas company, for example, for them to actually stop having fuel for airstrikes. It must lead to accountability, to evidence preservation, to sanctions, diplomatic pressures where appropriate, criminal investigation, and reparative measures. And most importantly, greater political power for survivors themselves. Now, I'm not going to talk about the ICJ at all because substantive case has already been argued. The deliberation is just now towards the judgment, but justice cannot end at The Hague. At RMCN, we've been working with Rohingya survivors and alongside Burmese civil society, especially Chin Human Rights Organization and international partners, the Myanmar Accountability Project, on multiple pathways towards justice. Our work on the universal jurisdiction case in Indonesia is part of the effort. The first in ASEAN and the first ever case led by Rohingya women. And it's important that a few cases have already emerged in Southeast Asia because this is the hub. This is the biggest enabler of the Myanmar military. The case uses Indonesia's legal framework to pursue accountability for international crimes committed against Rohingya. 2 articles in the new penal code allows for the prosecution on the grounds of crimes against humanity and crimes of genocide since the beginning of this year. Indonesia has accepted the complaint involving the senior general Min Aung Hlaing, who've now, positioned himself as the sham president because he's never gotten the legitimacy from the people because only 4% of the people could actually vote while he was trying to win the election. Under its revised legal framework, an important development like this is the effort to bring accountability closer where Rohingya communities live and seek justice, because there are about 7,000 Rohingya on Indonesian soil who were actually victims of the 2017 genocidal campaign. For us, this is not about creating another headline. It is about establishing a principle. Perpetrators should not be able to assume that geography will permanently protect them from accountability. And this is where I think recognition connects directly to handing power back to the people. And this is where I think recognition connects to the people who experience genocide, who should not simply be witness to decisions made about them. They should be making those decisions. Rohingya women should be at peace tables, not just armed groups. Rohingya youth should shape policy. Rohingya civil society should participate in reconstruction. Survivors should help determine what justice and reparations look like. We were part of this thing called Inclusive Federal Economic Policy, where in it, there are about 200 civil society groups, farmers, unions, people with disability, LGBTQ+, to actually help build a new economic policy that involves and include everybody for a new Burma to actually be a real federalist democratic country. That is one process. Whether or not that dream will, become the reality is actually up to all of us. And Burmese civil society, particularly women, ethnic minorities, and marginalized communities, must have a genuine role in determining Myanmar's future, the same way that I've described the process. It is very consultative. We actually put into the policy what we want to see in the future of Burma, Myanmar. And it requires a lot of imagination for people who are running away into their bunkers, trying to hide from airstrikes. But it can happen. The purpose of accountability is not simply to punish yesterday's perpetrator. It is to change who has power to shape tomorrow. Now, there is also danger to normalization that we are seeing. 9 years after the genocidal violence in 2017, we're seeing renewed push toward profit over people normalization. Min Aung Hlaing remains the head of Myanmar military regime despite regime's attempt to change uniform, to present its military engineered political transition as legitimate civilian governance. Governments are increasingly pursuing diplomatic and economic engagement with his regime. And we are seeing similar logic being applied to the Arakan army because it controls the territory. Because do we have another option? Some international actors are increasingly treat engagement and economic access as inevitable. It does not have to. We need to stop confusing access with peace. And we need to stop confusing territorial control with democratic legitimacy. The Myanmar military's ethno-nationalism helped create the conditions of genocide, and now look at the rest of the country. The instability that we're seeing is not because the people did not want peace. It was because we allowed this kind of ethno-nationalism to go unchecked. We cannot defeat ethno-nationalism by reproducing it under another flag, cutting one head of the Hydra for 100 more to pop out. We cannot we can oppose the junta and still hold the Arakan army accountable for abuses against Rohingya, despite it being the revolutionary group. We can support Myanmar's democratic revolution while insisting that Rohingya women and marginalized communities are part of the revolution. A revolution that excludes women is always incomplete and will always fail. A revolution that excludes Rohingya will not be a democratic revolution. Now, 3 recommendations that I have is this. 9 years post the violent campaign, I want to leave you with this. First, let's stop normalizing impunity in the name of economic engagement. We have this very short-sighted outlook of the world, as if we think we're going to die in 10 years and we do not have to bear the consequences of the world going in, haywire. Governments, businesses, and international institutions should not put profit before people. Because again, that profit will not last long. If you want sustainability and the ability to actually be profiting from the stability from a stable country, it is a better investment to actually invest in the revolutionary group that knows how to treat people, that knows to be intersectional, that knows how democratic federalist countries should work. Governments, and also, my apologies, do not reward Myanmar junta with political legitimacy or economic opportunities while accountability remains absent. And do not assume that because the Arakan army is not the junta, that it should automatically receive political and economic legitimacy. Human rights must be the condition of engagement, not an afterthought to it. Instead, invest in the people, women, youth, civil society, education, healthcare, local peace builders, and human rights defenders. Yes, it's a slow process. We've waited for the ICJ. We've waited for other things. We can wait to actually ensure that these groups actually flourish and are able to take charge. We can invest in people. Second, put survivors at the center of justice and political decision-making. Support the ICJ process beyond the ruling of whatever it is, whatever it may be. Survivors still need help to push for accountability. ICJ does not have an enforcement department. Even if a decision comes out tomorrow in favor of the Rohingya and calls it a genocide, we still need to work. It is not the end. The Rohingya still need the support. And also support universal jurisdiction efforts and other accountability mechanisms, whatever it may be. Let's be creative, like Professor Imtiaz talked about. Let's preserve evidence, let's support survivor-led documentation, but also let's go beyond courtroom. Do not make decisions about Rohingya without us. The people who survived genocide must have a meaningful role in determining justice, reparations, reconstruction, repatriation, and the future political structure of Myanmar. So the recognition should not simply just give survivors a voice. It should help them. It should help give them the power. Third, build a Myanmar where nobody's freedom depends on another people's exclusion. The future of Myanmar cannot be built through another form of ethno-nationalism. It must be federal, democratic, and inclusive. Women must be included, and I'm sorry for keeping repeating this phrase, because so many other places where peace talk happened, especially in Burma and Myanmar, but other failed states, always exclude women. Ethnic minorities must be included. Rohingya must be included. We want to vote. We want education. We want political representation. We want recognition of our ethnic identity or our indigeneity. We want to go back and rebuild our homes. Let us be able to do that. We want justice for those who have committed genocide, and we want reparations for those we've lost. We want to return to Arakan, not to take somebody else's places, but to reclaim our very own places in our ancestral homeland. That should never have ever been controversial. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. Bulla is very fascinating. At the beginning, you shared your personal experience. We have full respect. We express our full respect to your personal experience, and also very powerful voices you raised. And I really appreciate your engagement. So now is first round of discussion is over. Now we'll go for the second round of follow-up discussions. So this follow-up discussion, really what we do, the panelists, I request you can talk about something that you could not say in your first round of discussion. At the same time, you can pick up idea from your other co-panelist discussions. Then I would request you to wrap up your second round of discussions, follow-up discussion in 3 or 4 minutes, so that we can keep some time for Q&A. Professor Ahmed, I would welcome you first to reflect on to take part in this follow-up discussion, please.
Thank you very much. Well, there have been a couple of questions, and if I have to address each of them, we probably will need a whole day session. I'd love to do that. I've been doing that for years, in fact. I was also involved way back in the 90s, so I'm quite an old haggard, so I can see, I can I can tell you this, and I'm still optimist. I'm still optimist. Have worked on this for years, known the Rohingya community from very near, a good number of friends for years. So, couple of, the question raised, what about Russia and China and ICJ, which, I pointed out that you probably will have the best judgment, but then how do we enforce? So we should not, should start working. And I think Yasminullah was saying the same thing, that we should not just stop, waiting for the judgment and think that everything will be resolved. That will not happen. Dr. Farid, I know him very well. He's his question was, what would be the next course of action? So a couple of questions are similar in a sense. What will happen? There has also been question about the tension between local host community. There has been a shift of attitudes, and this can easily be what you call you know you can quantify that, and we do that. Our center, we map violence in the whole of Bangladesh on 26 categories, and also we map the violence in the Rohingya camps. So and the local host community, and I can say that yes, the attitude that was there in the beginning is not there. uh, Also on the question of Rohingyas' own voice. So I will not go into detail. Couple of things I think I want to flag. One is on the issue of Rohingya identity, and there are some members I know in the platform who are working on the Rohingya identity, including Yasmin's work. I am familiar with that. I think we have not invested in the Rohingya identity as it should be. There should be a serious effort to invest in the Rohingya identity in terms of their what you call not only the political and the history side of it that has been there, but in terms of their music, in terms of their poetry, in terms of their dress, the fashion, the gastronomy. We haven't done that. There are bits of pieces here and there, but not the way it should be done. And now with the technology that we have, it can easily be done. I'm really promoting this thing that even the international community, and not even even Bangladesh government has not really invested in the Rohingya identity. There has been a little bit of photography exhibition. That's not the point I'm raising. I want to take up the civilizational ethos of the Rohingya. As we did back in 71, I'm a child of 1971. The way we did back in 71, particularly in terms of our plays, in terms of music, we really had education, and this is what is needed. So when we started working on this Arakan stabilization plan, I remember we had a round table in the camp in Cox's Bazar. And there is a project run by BRAC University, the CPJ. And there were a good number of, almost 30 Rohingyas. They were then there for voluntary, training in computer, in English language, and all. So as a social scientist, I asked, and all of them wanted to go back. When the question was asked, what do you want? 100% wanted to return to their homeland. So I asked, as I'm a social scientist, so I asked, what do you want to do in the future? So one got up and said, well, I want to go for higher education to Canada. So I immediately said, okay, it's good for you, but what about your community? What will happen to them? So others understood. So two of them got up and immediately said, no, we don't want to go anywhere. We want to work for the community. And so then I said, okay, you want to go to community, but do you have an education policy? Have you decided on what history books will be like once you go back? And the answer was no. And they said, I said, what about the health? Do you have a health policy? Because day after repatriation, you have a headache. You need paracetamols. Where will paracetamol comes from? Have you worked on that, on the health? Have you have a health policy? I said, no. What about agriculture policy? What crops will grow? Well, the fertilizer will come. So I went on, and the answer was no. And so I had to tell my own experience back in 71. I was just a class 9 student. I left my parents, did not tell them. I went to India, to Agartala. On the first day, I literally slept on the pavement. So I have the experience, in fact, of what can be called refugeehood. And I say to look that even as a class 9 student, we used to spend hours talking about our history, our education policy, what will be in the textbook, who will be the heroes and the heroines. Somebody has to work on that. And I did get the opportunity right after independence. One of the history, and I was just a class 10 student by then. One of the history teacher came up and said, they have commissioned him to write the history of class 3 books, and he wanted me to help him. And so, you have to prepare yourself, because today or tomorrow repatriation will take place, I'm telling you. But unless we prepare ourselves, and that is where this Arakan stabilization plan and the capacity building needs to be linked, in fact, because the capacity building must have end of the tunnel. There must be some light, because if there is no light, then we can't take it very far. As some of the Rohingyas were saying, even we don't know what to do with the capacity, not to mention Bangladesh government is also hesitant. So we have identified 6 areas. Agriculture is one area, health is number 2, education 3, infrastructure 4, number 5, manufacturing, and the 6th area, energy. Now, these 6 areas were identified by consulting more than 250 people in 10 countries. We started way back in Canada last year in September, I think. We also went to UCL in London. Not to mention in Bangladesh, we had as many as 12 stakeholders meeting. And then we traveled to 6 countries, to South Korea, to Indonesia, to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. And so a lot of people have been consulted on this idea of the stabilization plan. As I said, that we can't just keep quiet. I understand all the 5 pathways may work at one time. We don't know. That should be moved. I am very much into accountability. I worked on the accountability for years. That also should be pursued. But we must also prepare ourselves, particularly on the capacity building, to empower the Rohingyas to the point that they are so empowered that then the other side will also know that this repatriation will benefit them. So they would not be looked down upon as something disempowered. That's the point. And this is where the diaspora can play. I know Yasminullah has been working tremendously on this. This is where, particularly with the technology, the diaspora can be brought in. So I am very hopeful of this, but work has to be done on the Rohingya identity itself. There has to be videography, documentaries, and I said all kinds of things. Serious literature work has to be done, and then I believe we will be in a position where even Myanmaris will also know that this community can be a kind of an asset and not a liability, as it has been the case throughout history. So I'm pretty confident. Let's continue with the work. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Ahmed. It's always pleasant to listen to you, and also you have covered a lot of questions from the chat box. Now I will welcome Dr. Anderson. Please come up and just say your follow-up discussions. You can pick up some points from other co-panelists, and also you can reflect on the questions, some questions specifically for you sent to the chat box. Yes, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be pretty brief. It's hard to keep up with all the questions, which is great that people are so interested. I'll speak briefly to this point of identity in exile, which I think is an interesting one, and one I think about a lot, because it's I think it's one of the paradoxes really of becoming a refugee, particularly in response to genocide, that you often need to kind of downplay or separate yourself from your identity in order to survive. So you go abroad. If you're lucky, you go abroad. And then when you go abroad, you're separate from your culture, from your community, and all these things that actually contribute to making you Rohingya or making you Yazidi or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I would just echo what Professor Ahmed said, that this is something that also needs more attention, sort of cultivating Rohingya culture also in exile. And I know people are working on this. Obviously, there's the Rohingya Cultural Memory Center, but it's all kind of it's pretty small and pretty piecemeal, and a lot more needs to be done. Of course, the best solution is that people can actually go home, but the reality is that many people are in exile, and many people might remain in exile as well. I also want to pick up on this point that Yasmin made about whether you need to wait for a judgment. And I'm absolutely emphatically against the idea that you need to wait for a court to make a determination, which I think is patently absurd. I get why people say it, but I feel like these people are saying it without actually looking at the historical record of courts dealing with genocide or just genocide more generally, because I mean, sadly, impunity is much more common than accountability in terms of historical genocide. So usually no court rules on genocide, to be blunt, and nobody's held responsible. And then, of course, you have this whole facet of genocide prevention, which is also part of the Genocide Convention. You can go back to the Bosnia-Serbia case at the ICJ, which affirmed this. And you can't have genocide prevention if you say, oh, we got to wait for a court, which might take, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, depending, in order to determine that there's actually genocide. So I think genocide is actually too important to be left to the lawyers, even though I myself am a law professor. But I think the idea of waiting for a court is just ridiculous and should be discarded out of hand. Finally, I'll pick up on one of the questions I had from Dr. Alam. And he was saying basically whether, let's see this, after 9 years, isn't it our realization that the issue has surpassed the possibility of peaceful repatriation, which of course is kind of the crux of the matter. And you had these gestures of the Bangladesh, or the former Bangladesh government, I guess now, under the former government, basically saying that they were going to repatriate Rohingya and saying we'll take 100,000 or whatever the case was, and that we've already spoken to Rakhine Army, or we've spoken to the government, or both. And there was, I was in the camps at that time, and there was, of course, a lot of hope among refugees, but like mixed with trepidation, saying, how could we go home? When people are still fleeing Rakhine and are still coming here, and obviously the fundamental situation of insecurity has far from being fixed. It may have even gotten worse. The Arakan army is really, I think, at least as bad as the Myanmar military, equally bad, perhaps we should say. And I've really heard horrific stories from people who have just arrived, and people are still coming. So I don't think, like, on the one hand, I don't think that it's surpassed the possibility of peaceful repatriation, but a lot would need to be done. You can't send people home now. I mean, that's obvious. And that's really ensuring the security of Rohingya would really be a broader effort, which would, I think, have to involve, other actors in the international community or the UN. It can't be left to the government in Myanmar, unfortunately, because the government itself was, of course, the primary perpetrator, one of the primary perpetrators. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and now I will welcome Dr. Farhan Rahman. Please join us.
Thanks, Professor Uddin. Just to kind of pick up on something Yasmin said, thank you so much. That was a profoundly powerful statement. I think it's important that we have, of course, you're a very prominent Rohingya voice, but it'd be great to get more of them involved. But just to build directly on what Yasmin said around recognition on its own can't become exactly what she's describing. So instead of leaving it simply as a plaque or a statement or a gesture that lets institutions sort of say they've acknowledged something without it costing them anything or changing anything materially for Rohingya lives, that's not recognition. So I think she really put that profoundly well to show that recognition performed cannot be a substitute for action. So if recognition doesn't lead to sanction or reparative measures, or create actual consequences for those responsible, and show actual redress for those harmed, then it's just a more polite form of the denial that I was talking about in sort of and the other speakers as well. And I think, Yasmin, your work with the Rohingya Mayafunar collaborative network, I followed it for a very long time, but I love that it's created and led by Rohingya women for Rohingya women, and I work around a lot of those sort of similar ideas. And when I think about the kind of networks that are created in the camps as well. So I do a lot of work with Rohingya refugees that are currently in the camp, and there's so much taking place on the ground amongst Rohingya women that's completely invisible to development organizations, to MPs, political parties, all of the policymakers at the top. So there's this disconnect between what's happening at the top and what's actually taking place on the ground. And if we involve those women like you that are working internationally in the global north, but also those currently living in the camps as well. There's a lot of good work being done by Rohingya women there. I think there's, if we, before even trying to help them, it's recognizing that they exist. I think that's the big disconnect. A lot of organizations at the top don't even recognize that there's so much political action being taken by women on the ground. So, your organization and your network is doing some really good work. And I think that's the point I kind of want to underline, which is that justice, and as you mentioned, it can end at the courtroom in the Netherlands. The ICJ process matters, but it was never going to be the be all end all or sufficient on its own. And we shouldn't let this judgment, however historic or whatever we think it might be or not be, become this moment for the world to decide whether the Rohingya question is now resolved. Because it won't be, it will never be. I think recognizing that people are still living these lives and they're not just surviving. There needs to be recognition, repatriation, but repatriation with justice, with rights resolved, and recognizing that women have to have a seat in these larger questions. And just, I think there was one question specifically for me around are the recommendations concerning the denial of Rohingya identity in the context of the repatriation process, and sort of kind of what I spoke about earlier, any repatriation process built on Myanmar's terms, where Rohingya are required to accept categories like Bengali, which they categorically resist, or national verification cards that don't recognize them as Rohingya or as citizens or as people with a name, isn't repatriation. It continues to be this denial officially in official administrative terms. And so even when we think about repatriation, that the first recommendation I would suggest is even naming identity has to be attached to, does the Myanmar government, does Myanmar recognize that the Rohingya are Rohingya, and not Bengalis or foreign nationals. And then things like citizenship and identity documentation can progress from there. So even naming and recognizing identity has to start from these basic levels of the Myanmar government recognizing that. But yeah, I'll keep it brief.
Yeah, thank you so much. And now I will welcome Yasmin. Please join us for the follow-up discussion and just respond a couple of questions, please.
Thank you so much. I don't think there was any specific question that was directed to me, and that's okay. I think there is definitely something that Dr. Haman was talking about when it comes to so many women in the refugee camps, having these almost like an underground network. They're constantly working, they're constantly trying to better their situation, build capacity. And I wholeheartedly agree. The Rohingya women that you all know are very different from the real Rohingya women on the ground. Every single Rohingya woman that I've met, that I've come across, that I've had the privilege and honor to sit with and discuss, different issues, especially those in exile, not so much those in the diaspora. Every single one of them hold this fiery brand of feminism in them. The issue is the international community, development agencies, INGOs constantly treat them as though they are passive victims, as though they are so incapable of taking care of themselves. While if we just imagine for 1 second that Rohingya women no longer exist, tomorrow, poof, they go away, the entire camps will descend into chaos. Because every part of the invisible labor that holds together this entire 30 plus refugee camps are actually by the labor of Rohingya women, because they refuse to actually let our will to live die, because they're actually the ones holding everyone together while we're all going insane trying to actually survive the circumstances with dwindling funds, with less and less and less rations of food, trying to stretch the food for an entire family of 10 maybe in a small space. Just imagine us being in those spaces, right? For 1 second. You have only 1 hour per day in the camps to go collect water. It may be far, it may be near, but you'd have to carry it all within 1 hour. That's labor of women. They do the washing. They make sure that the kids are washed. They make sure that the kids' clothes are washed. They make sure they send the kids to school. Every part of the livelihood in the refugee camps are held together by Rohingya women. And this is not just true in the refugee camps. It's also true across the board, across the diaspora, across everyone in exile. The Rohingya women have such a huge role. I was able to only, be alive and seek refuge or seek asylum in Canada. I was a refugee in Thailand for 16 years. All of that was because of one decision. My mother decided she was done with the violence that was happening in the 90s against the Rohingya. She was done, and she was willing to put her life at risk and ensure that she was holding me in her arm to cross the border into Thailand. That was one decision of a Rohingya woman. And so many millions of Rohingya women have made the exact same decisions. And I think we don't give them enough credits for what they've done, for how much they've actually hold this community together before it descends into chaos because of all the restrictions that we deal with. At the same time, we're also not giving them the credit to be at the table as if they don't
Yeah.
exist, as if our invisible labor is just not, not good enough to be worthy of being discussed, to be worthy of actually consulted. Do you know, I actually held a couple of advocacy training, and thanks to our partner on the ground, Restless Beings, they're such wonderful organization. Apart from following us, you should definitely follow them. They have such good method and ways of working with the Rohingya community. Their women's center there is not a single sewing machine in sight. It was just a center for women to come and rest with fans running all day long. They can do whatever they want. They have a breastfeeding room and a prayer room if the women need it. And I think that's the kind of space that we ought to create more, but neither here nor there. Some of the women that we actually tried to do advocacy training ended up giving us the advocacy training. We ended up saying, you know what? Actually, raising kids in the refugee camps, giving birth to them and ensuring they actually survive until a certain time of their life is harder than advocacy. And that's the bonding moment we had. But that's the reality that I don't think INGOs understand. We all think,
okay, just
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm done.
Yeah. No, okay. So just to finish in 1 or 2 minutes, so that I have a couple of questions from different, and I receive a lot of questions, but we are just running out of time. And it's always, interesting, and it's always, inspiring to listen to you when you talk about, you represented, Rohingya women, and always a very powerful voice. We have full respect for you. So just let's go for a round, because we are near about to finish. Just I will bring all of you to the screen, and now we'll have a couple of questions received from different social media platform. Just we'll continue more 10 minutes. Just we finish our this kind of session, hybrid session, in 90 minutes. Now we have a lot of questions in the chat box. Particularly, I acknowledge your contribution, Mr. Faisal, then Upashana, Professor Farid, and Mahmudur Rahman, Nazamuddin, Professor Farid, and then Nazia Khan, Professor Akiba Nobi from Law, Aisha Siddiqa from Dhaka University, Jubair from Rohingya Refugee Camp from Kutupalong, Bajat Patak from India, probably. And so I acknowledge Jakia Sultana, Bijay Khada from Nepal, Kathmandu, and Aisha Siddiqa. And I acknowledge a lot of question chat box, but I received a couple of, I just fixed up 4 small questions, and I'm bringing these questions for our 4 distinguished panelists. Anybody can respond. It's not, round the clock. It's anybody, if you feel that you could respond to the questions better. Number 1, Is the repatriation the best solution given the condition in Myanmar, particularly ongoing civil war within the Myanmar, and also the control of Arakan army, who Arakan army is working against Rohingya? Given the context, given the situation in Myanmar, is this really the repatriation the best solution? Anybody can respond. We are talking about repatriation, right? But is the really the Myanmar situation is really at this stage is suitable for the repatriation, or why we are talking about the repatriation where Myanmar situation is not supporting? It's not, there's not conditionality for the Rohingya people to return. And many of you might know the European Union made a statement today, and they categorically declared that we continue to support Rohingya people in Bangladesh and Myanmar, but the Myanmar situation is not suitable at this stage for them to go back. So given the context, I have questions from the media. Please, and Professor Imtiaz, I think you might be the suitable one to respond to it. Please, in very brief.
Yeah, let me very briefly respond. I may be misunderstood, but let me also to try to respond. It's a chicken and egg kind of a situation. Do we want first the entire stability to be in Arakan and then the repatriation will take place? Or will the repatriation force stability? So it's a kind of a chicken egg situation. And as someone who works on dialectics, I believe both has to be utilized. Let me put it that way. Now that we know after 9 years who are the actors who are critical in resolving the crisis, let's put it that way. If you tell me, I will say there are four actors which are very critical. Without them, I don't think we can resolve this crisis. One, of course, is the Tamado, the Myanmar military. You may not like them, but repatriation will never take place without the state military consent. That's given. You can be critical of them, but Tamado is one force, and they will not go away. You can reform them, whatever, but that's one actor. The second one is the Arakan army. Now that they hold the territory, but the interesting part of Arakan army is they are not asking for independence. So, and they will not, because we have not understood Myanmar. Myanmar has never been a Westphalian state. It has always had fragmented sovereignties. And out of 135, almost 8 to 10 have proto sovereignty. In fact, they have their own flags, own military. 1 or 2 have their own currency. So we have never understood. The only country which knows how to work with fragmented sovereignties in that region is China. Okay, so one actor is Tamado, second is Arakan army, third, of course, is China, given its long history with Myanmar, not to mention the border. And the fourth is another bordering country, that is India. These are the four actors, I would say, with which we need to work in a way where we can resolve this crisis. Now, now that President Xi Jinping has come up when our Prime Minister was in Beijing with the idea of China, Myanmar, Bangladesh economic corridor, and when the ambassador of was as I said earlier, also when he was told what about the Rohingya crisis, he said that economic corridor can resolve this crisis. So we need to see that. Yeah. And for that, research is required. I didn't talk about the stabilization plan. It has 5 phases. So first one is the conceptual, which is done already. But I'll just stop in a minute. I know the time. I'll just stop in a minute. The research is critical, and I want to flag this because this is where, Dr. Bias knows about it. We are waiting for UCL also to get in. And of course, some of the members who are there here, you definitely want the research phase for them to join the research phase, and then we can go to the third, fourth, and fifth, where is dialoguing with the stakeholders, including Tamado and Arakan Army. So my point here is I'm still optimist. We should not give up. We should keep all the pathways working, and then it's like an octopus, one way or other, we need to resolve this crisis. I have enormous faith in humans, and so I believe today or tomorrow it will get resolved, but we need to prepare ourselves for that. I'll stop.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's not easy task, we understand, but people have a kind of a curiosity. How could it possibly this given context? So I just want to be very quick. The second question is, how can more Rohingya voices be included in the policy making process, particularly women, in Bangladesh and at the global scale? Anybody could respond. I would say Yasmin could respond. How could the more Rohingya voices be included in the policy-making process, even in Bangladesh, at the global scale? What Professor Ahmed was talking about, the different regional actors, global actors who are instrumental to redress the situation. Please, Yasmin, very briefly.
It requires a lot of investment to the community, and that means that you'd actually have to do the legwork of finding the Rohingya women who are willing to come forward first, and then other Rohingya women would actually step forward as well. I'm not trying to, again, promote RMCN, but this is the model of work that actually has worked. We're training younger team members to actually know how to do advocacy, to actually create messaging, to also do research, to do various different things that is required to actually fill in the gaps within, the human rights world or the humanitarian world. And we realize that this investment is a long-term one, because one day they will return back home to do, the due work, the due tasks that they need to do in order to rebuild homeland, right? But at the same time, in the immediate sense, they need opportunities to be at the table. They need to be called. They need to actually be able to represent ourselves. And we need to be less scared of actually having younger women stepping into these roles, because they're as fiery, they're as needed, and their ideas might be better than the ones, who have a lot more experience, not to exclude anybody. And I think we need to apply a lot of intersectionality in all of this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have full, support, full respect what you said. Yeah. We need to listen to Rohingya voice, because we are making decisions about them without listening to them, without involving them. It's also, the idea of participation. We have full respect for you. And then second question, I'm very, very quick. What is the consequences? What will be the consequences if ICJ, International Court of Justice, recognizes what was happened in Myanmar in 2017 as a genocide? Will it end the sufferings of the Rohingya people? Will it resolve the Rohingya crisis? So I think Dr. Anderson would be the suitable one to respond to this question. If ICJ give verdicts like it's a genocide, what's the consequences, and how it really will it change anything on the ground?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, the ICJ has the power to order certain remedies, but as we said before, I mean, those are still kind of within political frameworks at the same time. So, I mean, I think the short answer is yes, but not everything. That it will have an impact. I think it would have a big symbolic impact, and symbolism might seem immaterial, but it's not immaterial because it also informs politics and political decisions. So I think it might hopefully create some impetus for states to act and to address the Rohingya situation in a better way. But in and of itself, I mean, the decision isn't a magic wand and won't fix everything, but I think it would be a powerful tool for advocacy and for moving states.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's a good answer. And last questions. This is a very typical questions. Yes, Bangladesh. There's a question something like that. Bangladesh supports that the Rohingya, what happened in 2017 is a genocide. Bangladesh also support the repatriation and the dignity of the Rohingya people. But how long Bangladesh should host Rohingya people, and why? That's the questions. Bangladesh support everything, but so Dr. Farhana, you could respond to these questions, or Professor Ahmed could join too. But it's a very popular questions in Bangladesh. So I think this is a kind of webinar we are talking about, and we have full respect for the genocide survivors, and but the questions among the Bangladeshi people and many people that's asking how long, why should Bangladesh, how long should Bangladesh host Rohingya people? Please, Dr. Farhana.
Yeah, so I'll start. I'm sure Professor Ahmed has a better answer, but this is a very tricky one, and I get this a lot. I get this a lot, not just from lay people, but also academics, and they think it's one that you kind of have to frame in the larger politics of the country. But I don't think the question is how long is the right frame, because then it treats hosting as sort of this countdown clock that you sort of have to end, and then you send them away, which they have already done to some of them, to gone to Bhasanchar. I know there was a question in the comments that how come we don't talk about Bhasanchar and all of this. So that this idea of thinking of how long becomes, it's as though Bangladesh is facing this deep burden, which they have. They've carried a disproportionality for a crisis that they didn't create, and they have recognized the genocide, and they've named it as a genocide, and they continue to support repatriation to Myanmar. So Bangladesh naming the problem honestly, while also making clear that hosting was never meant to be the solution, is only sort of a stopgap until Myanmar becomes safe. But the real question, I think, isn't how long Bangladesh should host. It's why the rest of the world hasn't sort of created or allowed a stopgap to become a sort of permanent arrangement. So, there's over 1 million Rohingya have now been in Cox's Bazar for more than a decade, or almost a decade. And the international response, so funding, resettlement pathways, diplomatic pressure on Myanmar, has not been at the scale anywhere near what it needs to be. So if there's a message, I think, for the international community in all of this, it's that the timeline isn't really Bangladesh's to answer. It's a function of how much pressure and support I think the rest of the world is willing to put behind making safe return with rights possible, or at least third country pathways. So are we able to help Rohingyas who are currently living in Bangladesh have safe pathways to third countries genuinely possible? And right now, the pressure, I think, from the international community, funders, resources, has not been nearly anywhere where it needs to be. So it's not just a Bangladesh issue. It has to become an international issue, which I think a lot of us have been talking about and mentioning over this past hour.
Thank you so much. I mean, there are some questions should be remain unanswered because we don't have the answer to the questions. But I think it's a very vibrant discussions. What we do, we'll transcribe the whole discussion today and we'll publish in a kind of ebook format so that we can make it public and people can read what we are thinking, scholars, activists are thinking from around the world. So we need to wrap up at this stage. We'll say what actually we are doing. Organizing this kind of panel discussions, refugee and migration lab, and many other webinars going on today. And it's actually basically to express our full support and solidarity for the people who endured these genocidal experiences and violence. And I would say this event is a kind of reminder of sufferings endured by the Rohingya people and call to the international community not to forget the genocidal wounds that victims have carried over the years. This event is a call to the global conscience for justice, accountability, and the protection of human rights. We pay deepest respect to the resilience of the Rohingya people who continue to survive, preserve their dignity, identity, despite statelessness, displacement, and ongoing challenges in the refugee camps in Bangladesh and beyond. Thank you so much, all the panelists, and thank you all the spectators from around the world. We know we receive a lot of questions. We cannot entertain all the questions in a very short time. Thank you so much for watching us. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.